Inference questions on the SAT. When you hear the word inference, you might think, so, am I supposed to guess what the author means? No. In fact, that is one of the most important things to understand about SAT inference questions. You are not guessing. You are proving. Inference questions on the SAT ask you to figure out something that the passage strongly suggests, even though the author may never say it directly. Think of yourself as a detective. A detective doesn't simply walk into a room and make a random guess about what happened. Instead, the detective looks for clues, connects those clues, and reaches a conclusion supported by the evidence. That's exactly what you're doing on an SAT inference question. The basic formula is text evidence plus logical reasoning equals supported conclusion. Think of inference like solving a puzzle. First, you find the clues in the passage. Next, you connect those clues logically. Then you determine what conclusion those clues support. Remember, you are not guessing, you are proving. For example, imagine a passage tells us that attendance at an outdoor event was much lower than expected and that severe weather warnings had been issued earlier that day. The passage may never directly say people stayed home because of the weather, but we can connect the clues. There were severe weather warnings. Attendance was unusually low. So the passage provides evidence supporting the inference that the weather warnings may have affected attendance. Notice what we did. We didn't bring in unrelated information. We didn't invent a complicated explanation. We simply connected the evidence the passage gave us. And that brings us to the 4 major reading and writing abilities that inference questions test. First, ability to identify what is implied. The author may hint at an idea without saying it word for word. Your job is to recognize that hidden meaning. So don't ask only, what does the passage directly say? Also ask, what does this information strongly suggest? Second, ability to connect details. Sometimes one sentence isn't enough. The SAT may give you one clue in one part of the passage and another clue somewhere else. You have to put them together. Think of those details as pieces of a puzzle. Individually, they give you some information, but when you connect them, the larger picture becomes clearer. Third, ability to distinguish. Strong support from weak possibility. This is extremely important. An answer can sound reasonable and still be wrong. Why? Because inference questions aren't asking, which answer could possibly be true? They're asking, which answer is most clearly supported by the passage? There is a big difference. Something can be possible without having enough evidence behind it. So when you're comparing answer choices, look for the conclusion with the strongest textual support. Fourth, ability to avoid assumptions and outside knowledge. Finally, stay inside the passage. You may know a lot about the topic you're reading about, but inference questions aren't testing your outside knowledge. They're testing whether you can reason from the information the author actually provides. So remember this rule. If you need outside information to prove an answer, be suspicious of that answer. Instead, ask yourself, can I point to clues in the passage that support this conclusion? If the answer is yes, you're thinking like the SAT wants you to think. So here's the big takeaway. Inference is not guessing. It's a 3-step process. Find the clues. Connect the clues. Choose the conclusion that the evidence supports. Whenever you see an inference question, remember, text evidence plus logical reasoning equals supported conclusion. And before choosing your answer, ask yourself one final question. What conclusion can I prove using the clues in the text? That's the mindset that will help you solve SAT inference questions accurately and confidently.
Keep learning with Academics. Visit www.academics.com for more videos, study resources, and expert tutoring. See you next time.